Vincent is from Denmark, heads the Institute for Bubble Studies, if I say that correctly. And we meet the first time in 2018 at the conference we organized together with an NGO that works in statistics, and we talked about fake news. And now that's the second time we've been organizing an event together, and I'm very happy to have him here with us. And I just give you the floor, Vincent.
Well, thank you so much, sir. Let me just share the screen here, and I'll take the floor. Now, yes, my name is Vincent Hendricks. I'm a professor of formal philosophy at the University of Copenhagen and the director of the Center for Information and Bubble Studies. Now, most of what I've been saying today, you don't need to take notes because you can buy the book and the t-shirt and the hula hoop and the yo-yo and all the other items, but you don't have to buy it. The good thing is that most of what we're talking about today is basically a book that came out last year. It's called Reality Lost: Markets of Attention, Misinformation, and Manipulation. It came out with Springer, but it's open access. So it's free of charge. So you can basically just download it for free in a PDF file, going to the link there. I'm sure that the organizers afterwards, if you're interested, could just send you that particular link, or you're welcome to write me and I'll tell you all about it. Now look at this screen here. There's a lot of information on the right-hand side, and there's a picture of a book cover on the other. Now, which one gives more information? Well, probably the one on the left rather than the right, because the one on the right takes a lot of attention. And attention is everything these days. So back in 1971, I was 1 year old.
Sorry, you can do full screen, right? Because we see the PowerPoint interface.
Say again?
Can you press on full screen? Because
it is on full screen.
We see the whole thumbnails.
Okay, they won't. Okay, because I'm running on two screens. See?
Okay.
So it's on one screen and the other, and it can't make a distinction. So you'll have to live with this, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Okay, that's good.
You live with that. Okay. So in the sub screen of the full screen, you will see the slide screen, and you can see, as I was saying, on the left hand side, you have the picture of you have the cover of the book, and on the right hand side, there's a lot of text. Now, which one makes the further impression and which one is fast? Well, you probably the right-hand side. And that's the point. Back in 1971, and I was 1 year old, Herbert Simon, who received the Nobel Prize in 1978, back in 71, said something very prophetically about an information age to come. He said, in an information-rich world, you're going to find a scarcity of something else. There will be a scarcity of whatever it is that information consumes. But what information consumes is pretty obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. And there you have it. In the information age, it's not microchips or oil. It's people's attention as a cognitive resource and as an asset. Because attention generates engagement, and engagement generates traffic. And traffic generates data, and data can be curated, it can be big data analyzed, and then it can be used for sales. That's the market model of most of the social media platforms that we know today. So that basically means as soon and as much you can capture people's attention, and what is being consumed once you are using your attention is basically information. So information is the gateway through your attention to your consciousness. That is basically the cognitive model under which most of these companies operate. But whatever captures our attention doesn't have to be true. So basically, it doesn't make a distinction between whether the information that you acquire through that you spend your time on is true or false. Those distinctions are made. And I'm sorry to say that all the studies that we have been conducting seem to support the idea that whatever is viral is not necessarily true, and whatever is true is not necessarily viral. And thus, it's not for fun that World Economic Forum, since 2013 in their global risk reports, every year, the OECD as well, the UN has also been knocking on this door, basically to say that misinformation is now to be considered a global challenge, on par with climate change, world health issues, the 17 UN goals, if you wish, the World Economic Forum's 10 challenges to the world. Misinformation is one of them. And the argument is that the global risk of massive digital misinformation sits at the center of a constellation of technological and geopolitical risks, ranging from terrorism to cyber attacks and the failure of global governance. The latter part of the sentence read democracy, if you wish. Now, that's the situation we are in. And it's not too surprising, actually. Our understanding of democracy dates back to the Enlightenment. And the basic idea was back then, as it should be now, give people some more, make more information available, read, knowledge, and giving them more information and knowledge would actually strengthen their autonomy, their self-determination, and the way in which they can make independent, qualitative, correct decisions. That's the entire point of correct information.
Vince,
But what we
sorry,
have seen,
sorry, Vince. I'm a pain in the ass. The question is it still correct that we are on the technical question that we are on the slide 1?
no, we are on slide 2.
Okay, because we just see slide 1. The audience is seeing slide 1.
Ah, well, that is not very helpful now, is it? Okay, so
Yeah,
so
now
what
we
am
saw
I
it.
going to do about that exactly?
Now we saw it for a minute. We saw it in full screen for a second before what you did.
Well, are you seeing a slide where it says World Economic Forum 2013?
Yes, now we see it.
Okay, so
but
that
not
means
in full
once I go full screen, we got a problem.
Okay, good.
All right, so I'm just going to have to go like this. Okay, you can see this?
Yes, we see now World Economic Forum 2013.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
Sorry.
I'm sorry about this glitch. These things happen. Okay, so just to say, World Economic Forum is not the only association who have been pulling this point. Here is actually another one from the World Economic Forum speaking about digital wildfires. This is to the same extent, and the same goes for the World Health Organization. Have been stressing this dramatically, especially during the current corona pandemic. I mean, the surge in misinformation during this pandemic has been preposterous. And the problem is that they tend to gain a lot of traction, especially because it tends to be information that is very spectacular. And spectacular information grabs our attention. And spectacular information grabbing our attention is basically one way into our consciousness. And it's not for fun that we have seen this new word being coined recently, the infodemic. This word came out from the World Health Organization when they realized that the amount of misinformation pertaining to the current coronavirus, everything from where it came from to how to actually cure it, reached a pattern, which is basically the same pandemic pattern as you would see the actual virus developing by. Actually, even further or faster. Nature had a video about it, how fake news about coronavirus became a second pandemic. And it's certainly true. And it's also certainly true from a structural point of view that we are actually gaining the amount of information that we actually see pertaining to misinformation spreads faster and more elaborate than the truthful information. And one more thing. A recent paper from Science in 2018 went to show that it's not necessarily, we always saying that the bots are a problem. But what actually this particular study showed is when it comes to misinformation, it's not bots sharing misinformation, it's humans. And why? Because we might have a reason for it. We might have a particular motive for spreading our fake news and our misinformation. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that there is an attraction towards misinformation, either for political reasons, propaganda reasons, pecuniary reasons, that means money, trolling, you take your favorite pick. Motives could be many, but there's nothing to the current research that tends to show that the truthful information has in itself a way to go as such. And so let's just look at what we got so far. I went to take a look at what sort of conspiracy theories are right now actually getting a lot of traction. Look at these, look at the difference between this slide and that slide. There's a lot of text on this. Look at this one, that's all you need, right? There's basically no text on it. There's a picture of a weapon, a picture of a syringe, a picture of money, a picture of the 5G network, and a police. Will tell you 1,000 words and it grabs your attention immediately. And once you're in it, you can start looking at the particular reasons, conspiracy theories as to why. And then one thing you want to worry about is, where does all this information come from? Well, on the right-hand side, down in the corner, it says the Ukrainian Crisis Media Center. That's the source, okay? Question, is that reliable? Well, there you have it. Basically what I'm trying to say is, getting to the truth of the matter is extremely hard in a market where attention grabbing is everything and time is not around. And that only tells you one thing. You have to cram in as much information as possible, using as little text as possible, making it reliable as possible, while people can get an overview immediately. And that's where graphics come into the picture. That's exactly how we can actually cram in a lot of information in very little text, and people can get the idea immediately. And since everybody is in the attention economics market, whether we are the UN, the OECD, troll partners, take your favorite pick, you have to be able to be really good at packing truthful information in a way that's interesting to the public, truthful to the facts, and at the same time will actually be used as a product in an attention economy. So a few examples here to the end. Now look at this. Who's responsible for the spreading of misinformation? Very little text. Well, there are two graphs here, one on the left and one on the right. But look at it. Who's responsible for spreading disinformation pertaining to the Americans? Well, look, fake social media accounts, 55% politicians, 45% Trump, Russia, political government. I can get an overview of this within seconds. And I can also see the celebrities actually, apparently, according to Americans, spreading misinformation. Where fake news is seen as a problem in the EU, there you have the different flags, you have the numbers. In very strong contrast graphics, I can get this information immediately. And we're gonna have to see more and more of that. So data designers who are interested, so designers interested in proliferating truthful information is going to be able to work on these particular kind of templates much more now, given the attention economy and the scarcity of attention in the future to come. Another example here, the most common coronavirus conspiracies, well, miracle cures, New World Order, Democratic Party hoax, you can see the point. The same goes on the right-hand side. You have to be able to cram in these stats in a very easy way for everybody to see. And as soon as the discrepancies become extremely big between, say, miracle cures and New World Order, you sort of get the message immediately. Now, one thing is for people to acquire information. But one thing about acquiring information is you can still be doubtful pertaining to it. So it's not only about acquiring, it's also about playing with. It's also about getting it under your skin so you get an idea of where am I? How can I, am I just being fed numbers? Now good, can I play with the numbers? Well, if you can, that could actually be very helpful for people to understand the nuts and bolts of the problem. So I went to some coronavirus simulators, and they are very nicely done, where you could basically play around with the amount of social activities that you have, and you can see the virus is spreading accordingly, as in this graph here. You can also see the difference between social distancing and not social distancing on the right. And so these simulators are extremely helpful for people to get an idea of exactly the mathematics and the stats behind this without having any idea of the math and the stats per se. And they can still get themselves a pretty good idea. What does it mean? It means that you can actually take ownership of this problem. You can actually get an idea about what it actually is that they're being told in the news, and they can actually simulate it themselves afterwards. Now, you're asking me, what are we going to do to solve this problem? What are we going to do to solve about coronaviruses or misinformation on the web in general? Well, I think there is one UN goal which is highly overlooked, but which to me is probably one of the most visionary goals of all. And it's the 17th goal. It's new partnerships for realizing the goals. Because if we're looking just as misinformation on the web pertaining to the coronavirus is not just a medical problem. It's a political problem. It's an economic problem. It's a social problem. It's now also a psychological problem for the different populations around the world. So clearly, we're going to have new partnerships between NGOs, private companies, and states, possibly overstate organs like the UN to actually treat and tackle these problems. So we're going to have to look to new ownerships in innovative ways, just like Facebook hooked up with WHO pertaining to misinformation on the coronavirus. We're going to have to see a lot more of these partnerships being forged in order for us to come to grips with these problems, because these are problems with so many moving parts. And if we don't have partnerships to follow these moving parts, we are not going to be able to get out on the other side of this misinformation problem, whether it pertains to the coronavirus, elections, misinformation on the web, health issues, inequality, take your favorite pick. So in order to realize the 16 other goals, the 17th goal, to me, is one of the most central goals, but it's also one of the most overlooked goals so far. Maybe Stefan could correct me on this, but it seems to me that that is actually one of the really, really strong missions of the UN. And with that, I have been speaking for exactly 15 minutes, and thank you so much for your attention.